developed training programs over 22 years across corporations, prisons, and nonprofits. With 2 ebooks on worker-owned cooperatives to her name, her focus has shifted to environmental preservation for future generations. As a community partner with Arizona State University's EPICS program, Carol is currently working on initiatives to enrich soil, clean water, and cultivate nutrient-dense perennial foods. Her efforts will soon be captured in 3 forthcoming training texts in an immersive reality view. Let's give a warm welcome to Carol Manetta.
Decaf was on the way.
Okay. Thank you so much. You are so welcome. You got a whole boat up here.
I'm going to get myself set up here. Thank you, Ken.
Okay, do I hold both of these?
I don't have power to believe this.
I'll be glad to. Do it this way?
Which is a
Good stuff. All
All
right.
right.
Yeah, I'm an executive director of a nonprofit called Great Goodness. And we want to do that on the individual, local, and global levels. And we will do that. Okay. I'm going to talk a little bit about what you can do with permaculture. What permaculture means keeping roots in the soil, and it's growing plant foods that last more than 2 years, 3 years or longer. Okay, that's permaculture. All right, I think we're ready to rock and roll here. I'm going to share my PowerPoint so you can see this.
I think we're.
Here at Eden World 2026, we're getting ready to hear from an expert in permaculture and soils and composting and all sorts of wonderful things. So hang in there. We're going to get started in about a minute or less. And this is very, very worth hearing because, well, the future of our planet depends on soil. You bet. All right, are you able to see the PowerPoint? Yeah. All righty. And that's what it is. It's going to be global, but it can be done on the local level and the individual level. We're going to restore the planet. There are a number of different routes to climate healing. Okay, so we've got what? Yeah, down here. Okay. We can do this, of course, by stopping the eating of animal foods, but that's just a starter. We've got animal sanctuaries going on, both for domestic animals as well as wild animals, and we're helping the planet in a variety of ways. I hope you can all hear me. All right. Let's take a look at what's in this wonderful, bountiful basket. This is from a food forest that is from the Netherlands, and it's a food forest Kettlebrook. All right, take a look around this basket and see what you see. A wide variety of fruits, a wide variety of greens, nuts, seeds, berries, all kinds of foods. And this is just from one food forest. And later on in the presentation, you're going to see just how small it is to be able to produce all this stuff. But you also see some things that are mildly processed. One is juice, that's red juice. And the other one is a vinegar that's made from some of these foods. Okay, so we can have them now and we can have some later in that way. This is what we're going to talk about here. We've got soil enhancement by increased living beings under the soil. Did you know that just over half of all living beings on this planet are found under the soil? Okay, we've killed off a great many of them though. We've got additional vitamins and minerals that follow those critters under the soil and coming into you. I started my pathway toward plant-based eating, which has been 26 years now, for health. And I read in 1970 a book by a nutritionist of the day, Adele Davis, and she talked about in 1970 that the nutrition in foods had come down since World War II up to 1970. The nutrition in foods have come down even further since that time until now. We ought to be very afraid. Okay. Now we're also going to talk about the retention of water in new spaces that are created by these living beings. And water is critical around the planet, either too little or too much. Then we're going to talk about leaves and shading the soil and how the temperature makes a difference. I recently saw a video where they had someone who was going around and taking the temperature of soil where they is covered with plants, and they had one temperature and had the camera follow them across the street to where they had monoculture foods that had been already harvested, so the soil was bare, and the difference in temperature was 80 degrees Fahrenheit. 80 degrees. Now you think about all the bare soil and how hot that is, and think about global warming. Okay, we'll talk, when you see the pictures that are coming up, you'll understand why that's important. Okay, we want to keep the soil covered. And then we're going to talk about the promotion of wildlife in balance with nature. We don't have nature without wildlife. We just don't have it. Okay, so we've got to talk about how do we support them. All right, take a look at this particular food. Okay, it's vegan. It's all vegan. There's all plant foods. But I want to ask you if you can identify which of these foods are permaculture and which are annual. How many are permaculture? Let's take a look around there and take a good look at it. How many do you see that you know are permaculture foods? You'll find two of them. Okay, you've got ginger on the upper right corner, and you've got a lime down in the lower left corner. All the rest are annual crops. Very important for us to understand the movement toward permaculture. This is land that's in France. This is farmland. All these pictures, this one and several following them, are all done through Google Earth. You can do this yourself. I've done this around the world and seen pictures like this and the ones that follow, even on island nations. You see this patchwork quilt. This is all annual crops. Okay, and they're developed that way because of the machinery that we, especially in America, have created to be able to do this, starting with tractors. I worked at Ford Motor Company, and they started out having a tractor division, which they sold off. But it went from tractors to very, very expensive, up to $1 million farm machinery that's all run by computers and stuff to be able to do this. Now you see some areas that are dark. Those obviously have plants on them, but every place where you see that beige, you're seeing compacted, often dead soil from monoculture, okay, annual crops. All right. Right, we're seeing some, this is other farmland. Okay, you're seeing now more in the United States. Look how much dark green there is here, and how much is that beige dirt, which is high in temperature and often dead soil. Okay, whoops. Take that back. I hit a wrong button. I apologize. Okay, let's go back here. That's where we're at. This is Ohio farmland. Now we're looking at farmland in central Kansas. There's even less. On the right-hand side, you can see where there are sources of water. That's where they have higher ground and the water is coming down. But the rest of it does not have it. Where you see those circles, you can see some circles in there. That's where they're pulling water out of a well, and they have rotating sprinklers on their monoculture annual plants. This is in the panhandle of Texas. The panhandle of Texas has even less dark green on it. you're seeing much more of this beige soil. Again, patchwork quilt, annual crops. A lot of this is meant soy and other crops that are feeding animals, usually beef in Texas. Now you're taking a look at the Amazon. And Dr. Sailesh Rao talked to us at length about what's going on in the Amazon. We're in real trouble in the Amazon. This picture and a couple others that follow will emphasize that as well. This is the state in Brazil where they have taken down most of the forest, the Amazon forest. It's Mato Grosso. Okay, that's their state. Now, where you see in the upper left-hand corner of this state, it's very dark green. That's what the whole state is supposed to look like. You don't see that, though. All right? This is a close-up in Mato Grosso. Here's the land. You see the patchwork quilt. Where you see dark, it's very dark because that is where there's water, and that's where they still have the Amazon forest. The rest has been taken down. All right? Here's the irony. This is Mato Grosso, the state where most of the Amazon has been taken down. And the first thing that happens is they turn it into grazing land for cattle. According to the World Wildlife Fund, what happens is that others come in and they either make a bargain with or kill those people who have done this and take it over for growing soy, which is then fed to animals. You understand? And that's, again, an annual crop, monocrop. Here's the irony. Mato Grosso is Portuguese. We know how people talk about a forest being also the bush. Oh, they're out in the bush. It means thick bush. Not anymore. This is also in the Amazon. What you're looking at is the bottom of a lake. That's not a river. That's the bottom of a lake. And where you see these homes in the central part, those are floating homes, and you see the boats that are next to them. And one's a big boat. That is a lake. And you can see where the permanent homes are in the upper right and the upper left. They're on slopes. That's permanent housing. The other ones, that's a lake. Sorry, not anymore. Just a few weeks ago, I saw on LinkedIn a report, and I'm sorry I didn't take a screen capture of that. Is where the main Amazon River is. It's where all the tributaries join in, where the main river is. And the lake, it's so dry now that for the very first time, people can literally walk across the riverbed to the other side. We're in real trouble, real trouble. This is one of the riverbeds. You see the land? That's what it's like. So that's what you're looking at in the Amazon right now. Remember that lovely dish of food that I talked about, where we had this wonderful from the food forest? This is the food. This is where it's located. This is in the Netherlands. Now you can see where it's at in this lower center part of this. Now look at the land around it. They're still doing that even in the Netherlands. Okay, that's what's happening to the land around there with the monocultures. And that wonderful food was all from that small space. Think about it. Think about that, the wide variety of foods and their nutrients. Okay. This is a food forest, okay? This is where we imitate all the different levels of plants that are in a forest. Very important that we know that they are different levels. You've got an overstory trees, shorter trees. You've got some bushes. You've got plants that are closer to the ground and root ones. You've got about 7 layers. You don't even need all 7 layers. You just need multiple layers. And that imitates a food forest. And then you look at also the amount of food that you're growing in the same space as a monoculture, but it's up and you've got ones that are underneath them. It's very, very efficient. And also it supports nature. Here's how that happens. We increase the best benefits of the soil. If you look on the left-hand side, they have a plant and they have all these different microbes, and you can see them. They have a little, they put them to the side. You can see that there are many different kinds of microbes that go under the soil. On the right-hand side, what you're seeing is a tree, and you see at the edge of the tree, they have its roots that take things in and out. They depend on those small beings. They actually go inside, and I'll show you on the next slide how they go inside. What looks like white roots is the fungi, and that's critical for them. They have an interchange with the roots. They provide things for the roots, and the roots provide things for them. That's also true for all those microbes. They literally go inside the root. The first thing they do before they, however, is that they go and they wiggle around in the soil, and what they get on their skin, their membrane, are all of those elements, the calcium, the iron, the zinc, and all those other things that plant needs to be able to form all of its different kinds of cells. Think about the different kinds of cells. You've got root cells, the main stem, leaf, or your petiole that goes up to the leaf. Those are all different kinds of cells. Then you've got a flower. Think about a flower and how many different kinds of cells there are just inside one flower. Then they might produce a fruit. And the fruit, then there's a seed. Those are different kinds of cells, and they all need different kinds of nutrients, just like you do. Does anybody here know how many different kinds of cells there are in a human body? Well, that's a number of them, different kinds. Your eyeball cells are very different than your bones and teeth, aren't they? And your liver, over 200 different kinds of cells in your body, and they all have organelles inside the cells, and they have different jobs to do to make sure that those cells work right and that they reproduce, because they all have a different lifespan. Okay, so take your tongue and feel the inside of your mouth. Those are the cells that have the shortest lifespan, and they reproduce the fast and the most. Your bones a whole lot longer than that. And all the other ones have different lifespans, but they all need different nutrients. So we need a wide variety of them. And just knowing that the nutrition value of food has gone down since World War II makes me worry about all humans and all animals too. We all have these different cells to support. Okay. This is a little bit of a diagram that shows it once again. You have all, on the left-hand side, you have all these different elements, and they're shown by these, graphics. And then the beings, all the different kinds, they go inside the root, okay? But they need something from the root that they can't get themselves. So I always put it this way. They come on crawling over and they say, give me some sugar. And they do. They give them plant sugars and some proteins and things they need for life. And then the root spits them out and they start all over again. They wiggle around and get all those elements and come back. Sometimes when they are inside the root, though, they have everything they need. So they reproduce. They split and become more than one microbe. And then those microbes climb up the root into the plant, into the fruit, and then you eat it, and then that puts the healthy microbiome inside your digestive tract. That's how they get there. They get there originally from your mother. When you go through the birth process, you get your original set, but then you get more of them when you're eating fresh, raw foods that way. Okay, this is a picture of a food forest. You take a look at the overstory tree, you've got shorter trees, you've got bushes, you've got plants near the ground, and you have a wonderful walkway around it to be able to harvest every one of those. It's totally green. It's covering the plant. Look at the shade it gives. Look how it cools it off. And every one of those leaves, all the way down to the ones that are on the ground, they release moisture into the air, and they open up in the morning. And they only open up in these stomas that are underneath their leaves with the sound of bird calls. We've known this for 100 years. And the birds are disappearing. We're in trouble again. We need to have these sanctuaries for birds and beneficial insects. Okay? Otherwise, everything is going to go down very, very quickly. Here's a beautiful food forest. This is the Savitri food forest in India. So this is made for public consumption. You can see where they can walk around and they can do their harvesting. And they even down toward the bottom of the picture, you see that there are some rows where they can put in some annual crops. But most of these are permaculture foods in a food forest. Absolutely beautiful. They've done a great job. I have been connected through the generosity of Dr. Sailesh Rao with Rotary International. Okay. And they're in the island state of Australia, which is Tasmania. That is the same place where the term permaculture was born through Bill Mollison back in the 70s and 80s. Okay. Now, this Rotary International group has a mission. The first mission of Rotary International is to make sure that polio is eradicated. But the second mission is to make sure that children are fed. And I'll show you that in a moment. There are two organizations that start with the word Food Plants. Food Plants International is based in Tasmania, Australia, and it's Dr. Bruce French. He has gone through over 5,000 books to gather a database of all the edible plants on the earth. You see where that little red circle is down at the bottom? He very modestly displays how many of them they've already gathered. He's working with others now. He's collaborating with others. But they now have identified in this database over 35,000 food plants in the world. Wow. 35,000. Now, Rotary International is working with him, and they have the Food Plant Solutions organization. And they work, and the reason they do this, you can see it on screen, is that every minute, 5 children under the age of 5 die from malnutrition. That is still going on, mostly in the global south. So they are working with countries. They are working with over 50 countries. And again, here's the map of where they're working with them, mostly in the global south, but they're also island nations. They are not working clearly in the Amazon. You don't see them there, but here's what I want to do with them. And that is to begin some work in the Amazon, especially in that state, Mato Grosso, okay, where they're doing the most burning down of the rainforest. Now, they say they form partnerships with existing aid providers in those countries who work with the communities. And I have some ideas. I'm going to be talking with Dr. Sailesh Rao after this presentation, after this tonight, because I'm going to get him together with others. And they're waiting for me to work with them on instructional design, because it's one of the things that Greek Goodness does. I'm an instructional designer, have been. I did that in corporate world and all that. But now we're going to do this for plant solutions, but in the schools. Our purpose is to create teacher and student training packages that can fit and can be airdropped into a curriculum in the schools in the upper primary grades, because in many of these countries, that's where education ends, after primary school. So we want to make sure that we have them covered. They will be able to do this by dividing the work and creating a food forest, a small one, outside their schools, and divide the work into 3 cooperative groups. They will learn how to work cooperatively together. And the first one will be harvesting rainwater on land, using the land to do so and hold it in place. The second one will plan and plant the food forest. The third one will plan and plant the environmental plants that support the beneficial insects and the birds, because those insects and birds are the basis of all ecosystems on land-based in the land, okay? Not necessarily middle of the ocean, but on land, okay? Even in freshwater places on the land. So we want to do that, and they're interested in this, and we're going to do that with technology. And so that's why I'm going to confer with Dr. Lau and another person who used to work at Intel, because they know the technology people. And the idea is going to be really, really exciting to pass it along. And imagine children walking outside their school and having fresh, wonderful, highly nutritious food right outside the school door. Not only that, these kids, let's say they're in the 7th grade, they're going to become the teachers for the grade below them. Okay? And then they will be able to teach people, their relatives, people in the community, and each year they will teach the grade below them, so they will all know what to do. Okay? This has not been done before. It's a little bit exciting and a little scary, but we're going to do this. And then that can be distributed through the internet. Thank you, Dr. Rao. And it can be distributed very quickly. Okay. Now let's look at permaculture and its role, why we're going to do this. Remember the pictures that I showed you about that land that's all beige? Well, you take a look on the right-hand side. I'm going to do this. And you'll see that the first example here is short, and there's not much air in it. It's really compressed, and it's a lighter color. As you go on and nature takes over, this is in rewilding, then more spaces are there. The ground gets darker, as it should, because there's more, the leaves are dropping and there is more living matter that's decaying under the soil. We want that because that's what those wonderful little beings live on, okay? And you'll see that it also creates air spaces. So when the rain comes down, it doesn't go off. Right now, where we have compacted soil, we have a lot of that here in Arizona. The rain, which comes down from the cloud, picks up speed. And when it hits the ground, it hits with the velocity of a bullet. That's not an exaggeration. Okay? And anything that's on the top just goes poof, and then it's washed away. Okay? So we have compaction and rain loss, soil loss over and over and over again. And that's what you see where it's been cultivated. It's dead soil. We cannot have it unless we have these air spaces. We can't have enough water there. And then the critters under the soil can't live either. When they move around, when they move back and forth, they create those tiny air spaces for the water to fill it in. And we save it, and it can continue going down to into the earth. Okay, it says, now this is what you can do. Now I got this picture off the internet. It's actually a part of a picture where it said calcium. Now above the word calcium was the usual ones. Milk, cheese, eggs. I just cut them off. I hope that you don't mind that. But you can get calcium from these other things too. And people don't know this. They have no idea about nutrition. That's kept out of our schools. It's also kept out of our medical schools. And the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine is going around to teach it. Thank you. Okay, so here's what you can do. You can explore permaculture vegetables. This book, Perennial Vegetables, is by Eric Tensmeyer. I have this book. It's wonderful. But it's about the U.S. only, but it's wonderful by area. In the U.S., we have everything from very cool, temperatures all the way down to Florida, where we have tropical and semi-tropical, and then we have desert on this side. So we have a lot. And you can use this in other countries too, based on these perennial vegetables. One of them is sweet potatoes. I didn't know that, but now where I'm living, they're growing sweet potatoes. And those leaves that you see, they are edible. And boy, are they nutritious. And they taste like spinach when you cook them. They're wonderful. And they become ground cover because they really spread out. So it's wonderful ground cover that is edible. And then, of course, you have the sweet potatoes too. You leave some in, take some, leave some, and then they become perennial. Then you've got walking onion. These are just small examples. It's walking because it creates these nodules of tubers on the top, and they become heavy and they fall over. And so they create a new plant where they fall down. So they call them walking onions. Lovage down there tastes like a combination of celery and parsley. Wonderful. And you can eat the leaves, the stems, the roots, and their flowers. They're all edible. There's so many of them. We're looking at 35,000 edible plants. Oh, goodness. They're not all perennial, though. Now, here's what you can do. You can start small. This is for you to do. This is obviously, it's in a city. You've got a chain link fence up there. You see another building. You've got a car on the outside. This is in the city. One small fruit tree. There are other food trees around it. It's just very small, a small space. Now you picture, just imagine, please, taking this idea in a city, in everybody's yard, your own yard. Everybody can do this. And then see this around a school. It doesn't have to be a lot, just everyone doing this, and you'll have foods and you can share them. If you have too much, you can share it with other people. And where we have the sharing economy in any society, we have a more advanced society. The focus is not on money and accumulation. Now, here's the other thing. You can create more yourself for free. You can take these tree trimmings and you can find so many videos on how to prune trees. Don't worry about it. You don't need to learn it here. And you just use these simple tools to do that. When you take the green ones off the top and you put it into soil, but you have a rooting mechanism, okay? You can get rooting power, but there are other things that work that are for free. One of them, are you ready? Is human spit. I'm not making that up. Another one is just taking a tiny little teaspoon of apple cider vinegar in a quart of water, and you've got your rooting medium. Okay, this is so easy to do, and it's free. They'll grow. They're not going to produce fruit in the very first year, but you keep it up, and there you've got it. It's permanent. These trees last 30 to 40 years. Another thing that you can grow are grapevines. According to the University of Arizona, grapes last 50 to 100 years. Think about it. Okay. This is what we're doing now on the municipal level. This is one of two projects. This is the Heartland trial. We wanted to test those 3 groups, and we got those for planning in Sierra Vista, Arizona. This is really 2 properties inside a city. This is an urban one. That's 2 lots. And there's, unfortunately, it's in a flash flood zone. So they would regularly flood, and the FEMA came in and condemned the 2 houses that were on there and said, you can't, because it keeps flooding and this is a danger. So they're gone. This is owned now by the city of Sierra Vista. And I said, they were trying to find a place for me. I said, I'll take it. Because the water comes in where you see that pink on the bottom. That's a concrete ditch because they tried to prevent flooding when the homes lived there. That's been there for a long, long time. Then they had another ditch right in the center that goes vertical, and then a third ditch that goes to the left and across the street. That's Arizona law. You cannot capture all water and prevent it from other people. So we had to have an exit, which is fine. So what we're going to do is make more ditches and have what they're called smiles. These are swales, where you dig a ditch and have a berm that holds the water in. The water will fill in where you dug out and stay there and go down. Well, you know what? They already had them. Think about that one, their pink one would overflow constantly. That's why they had to take out the homes. So that water has sunk down in there. Where they had it vertical, that was a ditch all the way across. That's a swale. So that water underneath has been sinking down there for years. And same with the one that's on its way out. There's all kinds of water underneath these 2 lots. Now, here's the lot on the left-hand side. They had to clear it. So you should be able to see that. No? There we are. Okay, so it's taking a little while. Now, they cleared it all the way down to the soil. That was in December of 2023. Now, in August, that's 8 months later, that's what it looked like on the right. We were putting up a chain link fence. We had the posts up there because we have to protect it from the javelinas. If we plant anything, they'll be gone the next day. Okay, with the javelinas. But all that stuff grew. Nobody watered that. Okay. And almost all that time, there was no rain. We only have a 2-month monsoon season there. And that one was light. That was a light month. They only had about 4 inches of rain. But all that stuff grew. Most of that stuff is invasive. Okay, so we do have to clear it again to be able to plant what we need to plant, like you saw in the previous one. That's Sierra Vista, and that's where we're at. We're waiting for news as to whether the county will approve some monies to hire companies, local companies, to clear it again and do that stuff. All right, now we have a second site, which is right next to the Boyce Thompson Arboretum. That's a 100-year-old arboretum that was developed by someone who made a lot of money on a copper mine that was nearby. But he had a vision that he wanted to feed people of the world. He had a worry that people didn't have enough to eat. But he traveled to Australia 100 years ago to get some trees and bring them back. And so the Arboretum has a wide variety of pine trees, hardwoods, palms, all the different kinds of things that is now run by a nonprofit. Now, the land outside of it, you see on the right-hand side, they're making an estimate of which foods from the desert are already there and they don't have to put in more. You'll see a little bit of a prickly pear pad. Can you see that down on the right-hand side? And then there's also mesquite tree. Both of those provide food, so they're not removing any of those, okay? And then they're going to add some more to it. And you can see where it's at. There on the left-hand side, there's a water that will be coming down off the highway, and we'll stop that. We'll create some swales, hold on to that. And there's a dry creek underneath it, and they've already started to put check dams of rocks there to slow down that water and put it under the soil. So they don't, because water's obviously an issue in Arizona. So that's the two Heartland trial sites. Now, what you can do, okay? What you can do is begin to imagine and plan for putting some permaculture plants where you live. If you live in an apartment, which I did for a while, I put them in pots, okay? And you can do that. You can put down 3 levels, just a tree, a small dwarf fruit tree, a bush, and a plant down at the bottom, or just 3 levels. And that, and more if you want. If you want. All of the beneficial insects and the birds are hardwired. It's in their DNA to look for multiple levels. Why? That's what's in a forest. So when you put that down, you will actually be helping to restore the planet and have food for yourself. Anybody can do this. Again, picture this anywhere in the world, anywhere in a city, anywhere in the country. You can do this. So that's what you can do. Okay. We also need some volunteers to get the word out. We're looking for volunteers to do that. And you can do that over the internet. So you can contact us through reapgoodness.org. Okay, we're looking for you. And also we can answer any of your questions that you might like to have. Okay, so do you have any questions?
Oh, yes. Here, there is a question actually. The question is, who can I contact about this? We have meetings starting next month to discuss what to do with the recently closed elementary school here in Mount Washington Valley. Kitchen, classrooms, great, busy in town location. I dream of using part of it as an agriculturally themed educational venue that grows and sells products and becomes self-sustaining. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, you need to be sending this information out wherever you can. We can do that. We can be an amplifier for you. That would be a fantastic thing. That would be a fantastic thing. And then join some volunteers together. Okay. Right. And send you our resources too for helping you out. We have a long list.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Manetta. I don't know if you're a doctor or not, but you remind me of one. So if you're not, I am going to crown you Dr. Manetta. There you go. All right. Any other questions out here that you'd like to ask Carol? You have a question?
Well, we had spoken briefly about the Miyake method of planting close together. Is that something that if somebody contacted you about, they would ask you about? Should they just go online to look up that method? What is your...
Yeah, I would say go on. There's so many resources. One of the resources I use for anything having to do with permaculture is Andrew Millison's work from Oregon State University. He has over 200 videos on YouTube that are instructional, and he's a phenomenal illustrator. He stands behind glass and he draws with markers and sometimes speeds it up while he's speaking clearly, but he's been all around the world, and especially look at his series on India and what they have done to restore rivers and other things. But he's 200 different videos that are instructive.
Can you repeat the name?
Andrew Millison, Millison.
Yeah.
Yes, Andrew.
Yes, come on up, Kim.
Hi, thank you. Yeah, I'm sorry if I missed it, but I was wondering, how long has Reap Goodness been around doing this great work?
Well, we've been doing this particular work for 4 years now in preparation for and in the Heartland trial. Okay, we started the organization, I started the organization to help people who are getting out of prison or jail in 2009 and began to work with the Native Americans because the state of Arizona asked me to work with them. They were among the least served. And we work with hydroponics in Arizona State University. Our team together won 4 different awards from the university on that. And then from after looking at hydroponics, I realized that it doesn't heal the soil. We need it because we have to feed people, but it doesn't heal the soil. So that turned me toward planet restoration. And that has gone intensive for the last 4 years.
And gosh, I've known you since Costa Rica, right? And so we were talking about, all of these wonderful, restoration projects and rewilding and all with Dr. Rao some many years ago. And here you are amplifying it, making it a reality. And every day at Rowdy Girl, I'm constantly always thinking about a way to give this earth back to the animals, to give this earth back to the people instead of the corporations. So thank you so much, Carol. And thank you so much. Oh, did you have a question?
About the programs, about the teaching the children.
You have to come up here.
In middle school.
Yeah, nobody can hear you.
Your programs, you were talking about with teaching the kids in middle school and now teach the grade below them and all that. Is that just going to be starting in Brazil and Amazon? Okay, yeah, I think that would be some great America too.
Yes, it would be. Thank you.
Anything else? Come on up. Interview both of them.
I'd be interested in hearing more about what you did with the Native Americans. Is that just in Arizona or across the country?
It was just in Arizona because I was asked by the state of Arizona to work with them, with people who are close to Phoenix and then the Navajo Nation. And we work with worker-owned cooperatives too. They wanted to know more about that and be taught about that. And so working with worker-owned cooperatives, whether they're a business or simply volunteers, pretty much works the same way. And that's what we want to pass on to children.
And could I do a follow-up? Was it also in terms of the Native Americans to help create business and
Yes,
profitable?
yes, they wanted that as well.
All right. Anything else for Carol Manetta? All right. Carol, thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to hear you speak on these subjects with such passion, such insight, and you're a true visionary for this work. And thank you. It's a pleasure to hear you in person.